Hey YouTube, Pat Belliveau here. It's February 10th, 2022. I know I haven't posted here in a while. A lot's been going on over the past while. I can't even remember when it was that I posted my last audio-only series track to YouTube. It's been a while. And like I said, a lot has been going on, and especially over the last couple of months, starting with me getting COVID over Christmas. It was my turn, I guess. And although it wasn't that bad, it was like getting a bad cold, during the winter. It's not like I haven't had my share of those over the years, but some other things happened that were unfortunate over the last little while, and I've been thinking about what I want to post, the next thing I want to post, and as you know, the way that I'm doing this, which is the way I always do it, is unscripted. I have no sheets of paper in front of me, not even bullet points or anything like that to keep the conversation going. I'm just kind of making it up as I go, kind of like how I like it when I have my saxophone in my hands and in my face. So, but I did come across something very recently, as a matter of fact, yesterday, that I thought this would be a really good topic to address, I think, especially with, younger musicians, my students in general, and even for older players. And, and sharing my story about this will be an example of that. Somebody who's, not just recently taken up an instrument or anything, that's been doing it for quite a while, and it's kind of like the concept of acceptance. Now, this can kind of tie in a little bit with a video that I did previously that is on my YouTube channel here, which is basically called "What Kind of Saxophone Player Do You Want to Be?" And it's me talking about, the kind of work that I do primarily with the instrument, and how I kind of see my role with it, or kind of the work that I do, and if I have to classify myself as somebody or some type of player, that's what it would be. So that's kind of what I did. Now this one is, I'm going to go a little deeper and a little more maybe wide sweeping. I'm not going to keep it just to saxophone or anything like that in general, or it's going to be for anybody. And this whole idea of acceptance, this also ties in with some of the things that have been happening, COVID and other things personally with me and stuff, and how I've kind of in my own mind come to a position or a place where, I've basically resigned myself to trying to accept what is brought my way in life as quickly as possible. Recently I had a family member pass away, and immediate family member pass away, and there's the confusion and grief stage, and it was a sudden thing, right? It was not expected. So there's the confusion, the wondering why, coming to terms with it, the grieving stage, that kind of a thing. And then eventually you kind of get to a place where you accept the fact that this is how it is, and it's not going to be any different. Now, that's kind of a little bit more out of my control, and out of anybody's control who's in that kind of situation, but a little bit more towards a career-based thing. The idea of acceptance, about accepting the kind of musician, the kind of player that you're finding yourself becoming, or you have become, and being able to embrace it and be good with it, and to be able to accept it and be happy with where that is, or where that's going, even if it's just for this time, place, and circumstance. Things could change. People's careers evolve, your approach to doing things evolves, etc., etc. But at least being accepting of who you are, what you're doing, where you're at, and the kinds of things you're doing at this moment. So I came across a posting from a Facebook friend of mine who, his name is Ronnie King, and he posted this. I think I saw it yesterday. So it's February 10th right now. So this is February 9th. This came across my Facebook feed, and Ronnie King people in Canada would probably know him more so than maybe in the U.S. Ronnie King's a bass player, and he used to be with a group called the Stampeders. And I remember I grew up hearing the Stampeders on the radio, and my siblings would play recordings and stuff. Those of you that know the Stampeders probably know their main hit, "Sweet City Woman," is probably the main one you've heard before. And if you have access to YouTube, well, considering if you're listening to this, you're on YouTube now, search "Sweet City Woman," the Stampeders, and it's probably a tune that you'll know that you've heard before, because I know that it got widespread airplay and all that. But anyway, so Ronnie King posted this. It's a meme, but it's got a really good message to it. And I saw it and I thought, I have to steal it, because it's something that kind of hit closer to home for me, because probably 3 to 5 years ago, this is kind of where I ended up doing a whole kind of mental change and thought process change, and very much to my benefit. And I'll explain, and this is why I'm talking about this, but I'm going to read this to you first. And it talks about, this is an artistic position. It's not just musicians. It can be, anybody in any artistic discipline. But anyway, here's what it reads. Artists are not like athletes. We cannot win gold. We cannot beat other creatives. We cannot come first. Sport is objective. Our craft is subjective. Creating to be the best is a waste of energy. Instead, create to connect to the people who need you, because they're out there. Create in your way, because there is no right way. Take the pressure off and focus on your unique brand of magic. Now, the thing where that hits home is, and there's a fellow who posted a comment, a guitarist here in Calgary, and what he had posted was, just saw this very good photo post from Pat Belliveau. I have to share, as this is very important for everyone who becomes discouraged as an artist, performer, composer, or creator of original works. Below is my comment that I put on this post, as grasping this realization about 1.5 years ago has substantially changed my outlook on creating and, to be honest, my life. So his quote from what he posted on my post is, "Love this, Pat. I had the wrong approach for a long time, thinking I needed to compete. It totally restricted all of my creativity and stopped me from doing what just came naturally, and from allowing myself to complete any song projects. I never felt they had value in the commercial sense, and constantly compared to what was popular. I think it was actually the first lockdown that had me sitting and deciding that rather than sit and mope, I should just record anything and everything. I've never felt so good since throwing away those chains and just doing it. I've done more in the last 1.5 years than I did in 40 years, just by allowing and accepting who I am as a writer. It's so liberating if you can just let go. Be you." And that's what he said. Just be you. So my response to him, because it sounds like he and I have kind of had similar things happen. For me, my response to him was, his name's Bill. I said, "Hey, Bill, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago where this concept/attitude/thought process hit me right between the eyes. I spent decades comparing myself to others, trying to be a type of player I'm not, being far too critical and hard on myself, and not being completely true to myself when it came to my playing, writing, etc. Once I pulled my head out of my ass and turned all that around, the freedom and enjoyment that I experienced in return is a beautiful thing and liberating like crazy. Why did it take about 3 decades to figure this out? I guess the fact that I figured this out for myself is the most important thing. I just wish it was many years before that I did. Moral of the story, you do you, and stay true to that always. So one of the things I started when the lockdown hit was to start to write and to record. And I just wrote what I was hearing, in my head. A lot of times, I would try to write things that I thought that would be appreciated. And I wasn't writing for me. I was writing for, people. How would people react to this? Would they like it? And instead, I started thinking, I like this. I'm going to write this down and I'm going to record it. That's what I'm going to do. And hopefully there's a good response. But you know what? The main thing is that I need to do this. And that's what I did. And I think that I also took that kind of attitude or approach and introduced it into the way I play now. Because it's very easy for us to get on the hamster wheel of hearing somebody who we look up to, whether it's somebody local, whether it's somebody on a national level, on an international level, or even some of the, I guess we would call our jazz idols or musician idols, whether they're dead or alive doesn't matter. And you can put a lot of pressure on yourself to try to live up to or try to aspire to what they are. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to do that. But do put things in perspective. One of the things that I never took into account enough was the fact that regardless of who I'm listening to, what I'm listening to, any transcriptions I'm playing, any albums, I'm listening to, whatever, anything that I try to aspire to, I have to remember that I'm on my own individual journey. And that means that some things are going to be workable for me, or I'm going to be able to incorporate into my playing, and some things maybe not so much, because I also started to trust how I'm hearing things even more. I did to a point, but I just kind of basically said what that fella Bill had said in his post, when you just let go and just let things happen. And that's kind of what I did. And I thought, I'm going to be the player that I'm going to be because that's the way I hear it. I'm going to write the things that I write and arrange the things that I arrange the way that I do because that's the way I hear it. I mean, I know this sounds like from it's a Captain Obvious moment and, from the obvious department here, but it's one thing to acknowledge that, and it's very easy to acknowledge that concept, but it's another thing to be able to put it in complete practice, right? So you may be thinking, oh yeah, well, duh, of course you want to, be yourself and do it your way and all that kind of stuff. But just think for a minute to yourself, are you doing that 100%? Is everything you do based on the way you hear it, the way that works for you? And I think a lot of people, maybe they don't realize it or whatever, subconsciously, I'm not sure, whatever, but probably think that yeah, it's an easy concept to grasp and all that stuff, but is it really something that's being put into practice by them completely? And I think, like I said, 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever it was, maybe it was even more. I don't think so. But, when I kind of decided that I was going to grasp this concept and just say, you know what, I've got to do this for me because I just feel it has to be done. And if nothing else, at least I will feel better that I was able to do this and, be true to myself and write the way I want to write, play the way I want to play the kind of music I want to play, and not give in to perceived pressure from other musicians, of an audience, of whatever, being able to fit in. You find the place to fit in. What you do, you just do what you do, and eventually you will fit in. You're just going to fit in wherever, right? Because nobody can do you better than you can do you, right? So, and this is why I know for my students, I've really, even though I have them checking out so many different players and stuff, I always so many times tell them, do not clone yourself after anybody. You can have influences, of course. Everybody does. But don't try to play, Cannonball Adderley better than Cannonball can, because you're never going to. Don't try to play Michael Brecker better than Michael Brecker ever did, because you won't be able to. Take some things from whatever players you're listening to and, let them be influences, but you have to have your own thing. And funny enough, it took me, like I say, 3 decades plus to really fully let go of, all these barriers that I put up for in front of myself for whatever stupid reason. And I never grasped entirely what I should be doing and following what I'm hearing and the way that I'm feeling things right now. Right. So what I urge you to do, if you're listening to this, is to really stop and think about, what are your intentions when you're playing? What are your intentions when you're writing? Are you writing stuff that you're as simple as it might be or as complex as it might be? Is it something where you're being true to yourself? Are you giving into any societal or any kind of music pressures, societal pressures or music pressures that you feel you need to fit in, or I'm not going to be a success if I write this kind of stuff, or maybe people will think that I'm selling out if I write this way, or whatever. Like, think about that. Think about whether your intentions are for you or your intentions are for somebody else. Because if they are for other people, then yeah, that's I've been on that hamster wheel, and that's the hamster wheel I'm so glad that I'm off of, because it's very liberating to be able to do things for yourself. And of course, we want what we do to be, recognized, appreciated, and accepted by, people out there in, fans and supporters and stuff like that. But, you're never going to please everybody. That's the other thing that I really had to take into account, was that I was kind of working and writing and stuff to try to please as many people as I could. And wow, what a stupid approach that was. Something to not do, because you're never going to please everybody. There's always going to be somebody who's going to be critical of what you do. So come to terms with that right now. You're not going to please everybody, but there will be people who will appreciate what you're doing and will want to follow what you do. And those are the people who support you in that way. Those are the people that you just keep doing what you're doing, and they're going to support you. So that was a bit of a thing for me too, was that, but I don't know what this obsession with acceptance of others was, but I did go through one of those kinds of periods as well. And that's a hamster wheel that you need to get off of. When I'm talking about acceptance, it's not, having acceptance from the rest of the world. First of all, you have to accept you for who you are, where you are at this part of your life, and, where you want to take things or how you're hearing things and all that stuff. So I got to that point. It's almost like you don't care anymore, but you do, right? You do what you do, but you don't care. If you're so tied to the outcome and to the result, that's usually where the problem is, because you're like, oh, I'm going to write the next hit. I'm going to be, everybody in the saxophone world is going to take notice of me now, or whatever. Yeah, that's so not, in my mind, so not the right reason to do what you do. Do what you do because the music is in you and it needs to get out, whatever it is. Doesn't matter how many chords. It doesn't matter how notey the melody is or not. Who cares? If it's musical, if it's melodic, if it's something that people, if it draws people in, you've got something, right? But most importantly, if it's something that you're hearing and you need to get it out and onto paper and recorded, then do that, right? Just follow whatever you're doing. And I know, some of the songs that I've released in the last while have been more, they haven't been swing. You haven't heard a lot of ding, 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 ding coming from off of my pen, or I guess off of my Sibelius software, I guess it would be. It's been a lot of more, for lack of a better term, groove-oriented music. And so things like shuffles and funk tunes and things like that. Matheny-style bosses and bossa novas, well, bossa feel, and that kind of a thing. And that's kind of where my ears have been over the last while. And I remember sending a recording to trumpeter Bobby Shew. I'm sure a bunch of you listening would remember Bobby Shew's name, or no. He used to be very, very prominent in the LA scene and in the studios, plus also played lead trumpet in Buddy Rich's band. Woody Herman's band was with Maynard Ferguson, toured with Tom Jones and Elvis, and did a whole crap load of TV shows and movies and stuff in LA and back in the day, I guess. Anyway, he's moved out of LA and he lives, I think, about half an hour or 40 minutes outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico now. But he's somebody who's been a mentor to me, and somebody whose opinion I value and I trust, especially because he's old school and he doesn't pull any punches. But that's kind of what you love about the guy, right? So anyway, I sent him, a copy of something. I was just explaining the tune and how I was hearing it. And I told him I was listening to a lot of, Tower of Power and Earth, Wind and Fire and George Benson and Grover Washington. And I was getting into the more R&B and funk and that kind of thing. And I said, my ears are going that way now. And there's stuff, it's spawning other things. And I'm just really enjoying where I'm going with this and the stuff that I'm writing and putting out. And he said, don't question it, follow it. We question what we do far too much. So if that's where you feel you want to go right now, then you follow that. And that's kind of what I've been doing. And it was really great to hear him say that. And again, too, that was part of me accepting what it is where it is that I am and where I'm going and how I'm hearing it and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I still am right now. I don't know where I'm going to go from here. I have no idea. Maybe I'll hang out in this kind of realm for a while. I don't know. I could get up tomorrow and say, oh man, I got to write, I feel like writing a bop tune, with a nice notey kind of quasi Charlie Parker head or something. I don't know. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. Or maybe I'll want to write a modal thing with lots of long note values that's very spacey and very, a lot of room for textures and things like that. I don't know. Who knows how that's going to go, right? But that's the thing. Something's going to happen. So, in the words of Paul McCartney, just let it be, right? So it's going to be what it's going to be. But you have to come, to me anyway, this is a very, very personal and profound thing, because I came to accept that I have to trust my judgment and I have to trust the process. And I wasn't doing that in my own mind enough. And I think this idea of accepting what you're hearing, where you're going, how is this affecting your playing? Do I like where I am? Am I accepting where I am? And right now, I think I've had the greatest peace of mind that I've ever had in about the last 3 to 5 years. I'm in a place where I'm very happy, where my mind is clear. I don't want to compete. There's always somebody out there better than me, and I come to that acceptance. And I have also accepted that not everybody's going to like what you do. Your tone's going to be too bright, or it's not going to be bright enough, or sounds too much like, pop, or it's not jazzy enough, or maybe it's too jazzy, or it's this, or it's that. And, whatever. I mean, that's what makes music such a great thing, is that there are so many different offerings out there by so many different people. So you find the place where you belong, and you will. There's always a place for you to belong, and that's the other thing to come to terms with. Don't write to try to please everybody else first. Don't. That your audience will happen. You do what you do and stay true to that always. That's the moral of the story on this. And I just thought that when that came across my Facebook feed the other day, that it was a really important thing that I stress, and something that I thought, yeah, you know what? I want to talk about this. So, especially for the young players out there, and even for some of the veterans, if you don't feel that you've been doing this, being true to yourself and doing what you do, giving it all the justice it deserves, do it now, because you'll never look back Trust me. And that's why when I sit down to write, I write because I want to, it's because I hear something in my head that I need to get out. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a bop tune. I don't care if it sounds like a pop tune or smooth jazz tune or a funk tune or like an R&B kind of classic tune or something like that. I don't care. I'm just going to write what comes out and what my ear tells me I need to do. And then I'm going to go record it, whatever that is. You know, to me, that's the truest way to create. You know, I'm not trying to create something where my headspace isn't, you know, for some other alternate reason other than, I need to be true to myself to do this, to do the music the way that I hear it, feel it, you know, want to express it, that kind of a thing. Right. So anyway, I wanted to share that because, you know, I was reading that posting on Facebook and it kind of hit home because to me, I had that breakthrough a few years ago. And like I said before, I haven't had this much of peace of mind, I don't think ever. And I'm trying to move that into other aspects of my life too, to be able to get to a point where I just have to accept that this is going to be this way. And there you go. Move on. That this situation is not going to work. That didn't happen and it won't. That happened and it was awesome. You know, accept where I am in all aspects of my life, not just career. But the idea of just coming to terms with accepting the things that happen in your life and also the things that happen in a career like this, the music that you know, like I say, that you create, that you perform, all that stuff. Be true to that and don't be so reluctant to accept where you are and embrace and be open-minded to where you're going, right? So I know it's, like I said, it might be, you'd think that concept was pretty obvious, but I don't know. I think a lot of people are fighting with that. And I think the sooner you come to terms with the fact that accept who you are and where you're going and where you're at, and then where you're going and what you're hearing, and just embrace that and go with it, I think that you will have the greatest peace of mind that you've probably had in a long time, maybe even if ever, like what happened with me. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, pass that along, and I think that's a very important concept to consider. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on this too. If you want to add any comments, you can comment down here on my channel or on this particular posting. Or if you want to follow up via email, you know that I have an email address, which is youtube@belltones.ca. So YOUTUBE at BELLTONES.ca for Canada, where I'm based. So anyway, I hope that maybe this gave you some food for thought and didn't bore you too much. But I think that this was a huge breakthrough for me. And it's something when I saw this, I thought, you know what? I really need to talk about this on my next session. So that's why I brought this up. And again, too, like I say, this is completely unscripted. I have no sheets in front of me. I'm just riffing, shall we say, off the top of my head, but just putting my thoughts down here so that I can share them with you guys. And, you know, I hope that, you know, maybe this will make some people think about where they are, not just in their careers and stuff like that, but in other aspects of life too. So anyway, that's all the news, weather, and sports for me for now. Hopefully my next posting won't be however long it's been, months. It's been months since I've been here. And if you, as always, if you guys have any topic suggestions or just some things that you think that I should mention something about, let me know. You can, again, post comments down here or send to youtube@belltones.ca. I hope all of you are well and COVID-free, or if you've had COVID, congratulations, join the club. And hopefully that's the last we'll have to worry about that. But anyway, hope you're doing well, everyone, and take care, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.